Hey everyone, Nick here and welcome back to GamerTube, and welcome back to our Five Nights at Freddy's character concept series. So in today's video, the character we're looking into is Leroy the Lion. So we'll be going into this character's location, their gameplay mechanics, their backstory, and all that good stuff as well. And as always, I will just state that everything I say in these videos isn't canon to the FNAF universe. Just imagine this like an alternate universe where there is an alternate pizzeria and alternate characters as well. And lastly, do be sure to subscribe to GamerTube because it helps out our channel a lot and it is much appreciated, and it also keeps you up to date with all the videos that we post. Alrighty, well let's take a look at Leroy the Lion. So in our previous videos, we were introduced to the 4 other members of the Freddy Fazbear Jungle Pizzeria. First we had Lester the Lizard, then Penny the Panther, Gordo the Gorilla, and of course Parker the Parrot. Each of these twisted animatronics had their own disturbing backstories. Like in classic FNAF fashion, each one of these ravenous robots went rogue and was hellbent on harming the player. But there's one more character that we haven't seen yet. That character is Leroy the Lion. Leroy, of course, was the lion character in the Freddy Fazbear Jungle crew. Although he didn't join the other jungle friends up on stage. Once upon a time in the early days of the Jungle Pizzeria, there used to be the Arcade Cave. The Arcade Cave was a miniature arcade room with only a handful of machines. This was meant to be Leroy's cave. Instead of being up on stage, he'd be in the Arcade Cave. He'd have his own little stage where he'd stand and watch all the guests play their games. They didn't have many arcade machines, only about 6 or 7. But they had some pretty decent games, including the very popular Italian Plumber Bros, Mrs. Tackman, Street Biters, and Time Disaster. Although Leroy's Arcade Cave was quite short-lived. After the incident that took place inside the cave, the employees never opened this part of the pizzeria again. But before we get into that, let's take a look at everything before the incident. So obviously Leroy was modelled after the King of the Jungle themselves. Now some viewers will note that Leroy looks quite similar to Penny, and that's because the engineers used the Freddy Fazbear base model feline components. The only noticeable difference was their large mane, different tail, and the yellow-golden colour scheme. Fun fact, Leroy was one of the first animatronics made for the Jungle Pizzeria. His components and mechanisms are a little bit older than Penny's, and he doesn't have the glowing eyes either. So, like we stated earlier, the Arcade Cave was Leroy's domain. He would greet all the guests and rattle off a catchphrase or two whilst they played their games. Along with all the other friendly faces, Leroy also had an unlikely best friend. This best friend was Hank the security guard. Every night, Hank was always there to greet Leroy. Out of all the animatronics, Leroy was Hank's favourite. After hours when it was quiet, Hank would always be hanging out in the arcade playing games. Most times, Hank would put his hat on Leroy whilst he played. He also always brought Leroy an extra donut whenever he brought over coffee. Of course, Hank would eat this donut as well, but it was that fun little novelty that the two shared. Hank would often sit next to Leroy and tell him about his day. Leroy never talked back, of course. Hank always said he was just a good listener. The two were best friends, and the other employees knew this. There was a photo of the two up in the break room, and there was always the joke amongst the employees about Hank and Leroy being best buds. So one night, the Jungle Pizzeria held an arcade gaming tournament. Considering this was basically the only arcade in town at the time, it drew in a fair bit of attention. The night was a success. They had hundreds of guests throughout the night, all battling it out to see who could get the highest score. The tournament went throughout the whole night with plenty of guests emptying their pockets into the machines. The pizzeria broke a new record in sales that night. Thousands of dollar bills and even more quarters and coins were stored away in the arcade machines that night. These were pretty old machines, and it wouldn't take much to pry them open and obtain the thousands of dollars inside. The next night, that's exactly what a group of troubled teenagers decide to do. On that unfortunate night, Hank was once again playing games whilst Leroy watched. The teenagers managed to sneak into the pizzeria and make their way into the arcade cave. As they sneaked in, they didn't realise the security guard would be in the arcade. This wasn't a part of the plan. Out of the corner of his eye, Hank caught the delinquent teens who had snuck in. One thing led to another and a struggle ensued. After threatening to call the police, one of the teens struck Hank with a baseball bat. They then continued to kick Hank as he laid there on the ground. Leroy just stood there and watched his friend be unmercifully beaten by these heartless teens. Eventually, Hank was unconscious while the teens broke open the arcade cabinets and stole all the coins. As they managed to collect their score, just before they made it to the exit of the arcade, someone was standing behind them. It was Leroy, and he wasn't a happy lion. One of the teens, spooked by the walking animatronic, struck them in the face with the baseball bat. Soon after, the arcade doors closed, and what happened after that was a mystery to everybody else. In the morning, the police arrived on scene to an unconscious Hank, a severely damaged Leroy, and 4 knocked out teenagers laying on the ground. As to what went down here was a mystery to the police officers. Soon after, everyone was hospitalised and made a full recovery. The police didn't believe such an outlandish story of an animatronic attacking the teenagers and believed another member was involved. Hank, on the other hand, never returned to the Fazbear Jungle pizzeria. That night was the last night Leroy ever saw his buddy Hank. The police weren't sure of what happened that night, but the manager of the pizzeria had a suspicious hunch of who was involved. For safe measures, they deemed Leroy defective and locked them away in the repair room. Many months later, the pizzeria hired a new security guard officer named Mike. Unfortunately, they didn't have a uniform in his size, so he just had to make do with Hank's old uniform. The new guard went into the repair room and retrieved the old uniform hanging next to the out-of-order Leroy. After they changed into their uniform and stood in front of the old defective machine, something awoke in Leroy once again. Their buddy was back. After all this time had passed, Hank has finally returned. Leroy had to make sure he was safe. He had to protect him. He couldn't fail Hank again, not like last time. But Leroy's idea of safety and protection was quite extreme. So let's jump into the gameplay segment of the video. So unfortunately for the new security guard Mike, Leroy thinks that they're Hank on the account of him wearing the old jacket. Leroy plans to capture the new Hank and lock them away in the maintenance room where no one could harm him. Also, what could be better protection than a soft, fuzzy animatronic suit? Leroy planned to stuff the new Hank into one of these deadly, jagged metal animatronic suits for their own protection. So of course, like all FNAF games, the player needs to keep an eye out for the twisted animatronics and make sure they manage the doors and observe the security cameras. So alongside all the other characters trying to terrorize the player, they would also have to look out for Leroy. They would also be able to see him walking around on the security cameras. Leroy the Lion was of course making their way to the security office to capture the player. Now, Leroy's gameplay mechanics would be quite similar to the other classic FNAF characters. The difference would be that more of the other characters that show up, the more active Leroy would be. This is on account of Leroy wanting to protect the player and lock them away from all the other murderous characters. The player, like always, would have to quickly shut the doors whenever they see Leroy. He could also be persistent and still be there when the doors open up. Leroy can also appear from the left and right door. If the player isn't careful in managing the other characters and gets overwhelmed, Leroy would break into the room and deliver a classic FNAF jump scare. Now, I definitely think Leroy would be an awesome addition to the other characters. I feel like he's got quite an interesting backstory and could definitely fit in the world of FNAF. Alright everyone, well that's all we have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing, as it helps out a lot and it's greatly appreciated. Also, be sure to comment down below what you thought of today's character and what you'd like to see going forward. Alright everyone, well, until the next video, I'll catch you later. Bye.